thoughts end when I start to think. Oh, the tunnel closest starts to end up on the brink. I tried so hard, but all these scars, they cut so deep I bleed. I fell so fast from heaven, it's like someone clipped my wings. Now I'm falling, and I can't see the ground. Can we stop this gravity? It keeps bringing me down. I can't breathe, and I don't wanna die. Can we stop this gravity? 'Cause I don't wanna say goodbye. I forgive the pain you gave to me so long ago. Sleepless nights I laid awake just begging to let go. I almost got to suicidal thoughts, but you stepped in. An angel sent from heaven showed me how to live again. Now I'm falling, and I can't see the ground. Can we stop this gravity? It keeps bringing me down. I can't breathe, and I don't wanna die. Can we stop this gravity? 'Cause I don't wanna say goodbye.
up with a slow motion crew, and we up in our growlings when people change, but not us. And we just chillin', kicking it, kissed by the sun. Could be soaked to the skin in the mall soon. I know she got the good vibes when seasons change, but we're the same. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it. And I don't need to speak a single word.
Mics are hot. Switching over. Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. Rose Bowl preview is finally here. Got a lot to talk about today. 2 Penn Staters have decided to declare for the NFL, but will play in the Rose Bowl. Penn State gets a new transfer commit. And, of course, we got to talk Rose Bowl. So prediction, preview, predictions, bold predictions all coming at you, as well as some fan questions. Last show of the 2022 calendar year. Thank you guys so much for being here. Let's get right into it. Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. I'm Corey Listoki. With me, the great Sean Kane. Sean, how you feeling?
Well, so you could basically call me Michael Jordan, because this is my flu game. Because I have today tested positive for COVID.
You got the Rona, and not the good Rona.
No, we're not like. I'm not sipping on Coronas. I have the coronavirus. So, what are you gonna do? I think I got it exchanging gifts with my parents. So I got it from my parents.
Always blame the parents.
Yeah, it's all their fault.
Were you able to enjoy a good Christmas?
I was, yeah. I actually got it Christmas Day, and at least that's what I think. And then this morning I woke up and my nose was running, but my nose is running most mornings due to allergies. But then just continued to run, and I was like, I think I have it. So I tested, and sure enough, it came up pretty bright pink. So, gonna have to lay low for, what do they say now, like a week to 10 days or something.
Just means more podcasting time.
Yeah, honestly. I have all the time in the world to just record podcasts. I've just been watching bowl games all day, so that's been fun.
Yeah. Means you'll be more active on Twitter, I'm sure, as well.
Look out for me.
Yeah. Jacob Sparrow. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. We back. Yes, we are back. Hope, Jacob, you had a good Christmas. If you're listening on YouTube, watching live on YouTube, please say hi. Say how you're doing. Sean, I don't know if you're able to eat Christmas cookies, but I am currently eating some Snickerdoodles. I think Snickerdoodle is a very underrated Christmas cookie. Big, easy to make. It's not my favorite, but I think it's an unsung hero of the Christmas cookie department, and simply delicious, I think, is the easiest way to put them. I love Snickerdoodles.
I like Snickerdoodles as well. My favorite, though, is just the classic chocolate chip, but it has to be made by my mother. So, although, I mean, there are plenty of delicious chocolate chip cookies, but my mom's are just chef's kiss for those listening. Mid-chew.
Sorry, everybody. I made peanut butter chocolate chips the other day because Maddie, besides maybe my granddad, Maddie is probably, and maybe she's even bigger than him, the biggest peanut butter fan out there. Loves peanut butter to death. So everything can get peanut butter. Hot chocolate gets peanut butter. Chocolate chip cookies get peanut butter. Everything gets peanut butter. So peanut butter chocolate chip cookies I made, and those are really good as well. So very much enjoy those. Jacob Sparrow says Snickerdoodles are busting as well. Hopefully you guys all had a good Christmas. It's weird. It's gonna be really weird, Sean. So just some, I guess, logistical things. Once the season's over, we're gonna be probably heading to one episode a week, and that might not be all the time. If we have an itching to do an extra episode, maybe we'll throw it in there. But we're going to be moving to once a week, sometime starting in January, I'm guessing. And we were gone for, I guess, we've only had 2 episodes now in the last week, because we didn't record obviously on this past week, and we're not going to record. Well, I don't know, Sean. I was going to ask you, do you want to record? I don't know what your plans are on Monday, but do you want to try to record on Monday night post game, or you just want to wait till Wednesday?
I could do whenever. I'm going to be here, so I'm going to be here for a while. So I could do whenever. And
okay. We'll put that on the back burner, but we'll think about that. So we might be live on Monday night post game to talk about it. But otherwise, just so we're gonna go. I think, Sean, I think we're going towards Wednesday, right? Wednesday night.
Yeah. I think we're gonna do Wednesdays. So we'll go
Wednesday at 8 o'clock Eastern. So we're gonna move it up an hour. Hopefully, some of you guys will be able to then tune in for a little bit longer. We see sometimes the viewers on YouTube drop off towards the end. So we're going to move it up to 8 Eastern Wednesdays during the off season, in quotations. Prime time, baby, prime time. And so just that's kind of like what the plan is moving forward, as I'm sure we've gotten a lot of new listeners since before the season started. So that's the game plan. Still going to be live, still going to be on all the podcasts, all that good stuff. But that will be the plan moving forward. We appreciate you guys. Penn State shelf news. Juice Scruggs. I think this was definitely after, because I think that news was maybe right before Christmas. I'm not sure. But Juice Scruggs, center, heading out to the NFL, declaring for the NFL, will play in the Rose Bowl. You put a thing out on Instagram and Twitter a couple of days ago. Not surprising, because we knew that he accepted the Shriners game invite. But at the same time, I don't know how the right way to say it is. Like, I expected him to go, right? But there was a part of me that was like, if he stays, this offensive line is going to be really freaking good. And the offensive line still can be good. But my optimism took a tiny, tiny hit when Juice Scruggs declared for the NFL draft. I think he's going to be great in the NFL, too. He's persevered through a lot, especially with that car accident early on. Well deserves the opportunity to go play football in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm a huge Juice Scruggs fan. I have been ever since he decided to keep playing after that car accident. I think it speaks a lot to his courage, because that's not an easy thing to do with having a. It's said that I've seen that it was a back injury, and those are not easy to come back from. And it's going to be in the back of your head, at least initially, when you're getting back into playing a violent sport like football. So his perseverance, his courage, his toughness, I mean, that just jumps off at you. And he's a hell of a player. And I love having a good, nasty center that just gets after defensive tackles, blows them off the ball. And that's what Juice did all year for us. And I think he was a key person, especially in the last month of the year when we didn't have Olu. So he really held it down, and we're going to miss him. But nonetheless, I totally understand why he's going to the draft. If I were him, I'd be going to, just because life's short and you want to be able to make the most of your football career.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, the way he was really the rock to the entire offensive line this year. With everyone else getting hurt, he kind of stood tall when everyone else needed him to. So that was really cool to see. And it's also cool to see him playing in the Rose Bowl. Can still probably improve his stock against a good Utah defense, and gives him a chance to play one more game with his boys. And I think that's important to some of these guys. Speaking of that, Brenton Strange declaring for the NFL draft. Tight end Brenton Strange will play in the Rose Bowl. And to me, Sean, this wasn't very surprising either. We'd said all year round that Brenton Strange had made himself a lot of money this year, not just with being the safety blanket, but also with his blocking capabilities. I think he's a well-rounded tight end. He's shown that There's a lot of talent coming back next year in the tight end room already. Not overly surprised by this one, and I think Brendan Strange, if he has a good combine, he could sneak up some boards pretty quickly. I mean, this doesn't mean to be a knock, but he's kind of what people thought maybe like a Kyle Carter was going to be. What he kind of turned into. He's like Kyle Carter but can block is the kind of a good way to put it, unfortunately. But I honestly think with a good combine, he could be third, second round guy, honestly, if he shows up. People get pretty giddy about tight ends that can also block. Hell, maybe the Dolphins take him.
Dolphins might take him. I could see him fitting well in the Dolphins offense, that San Francisco style. Yeah, I'd have to go and look, but he's one of the most improved players on the team this year because it was far from a slam dunk that he was going to declare for the draft this year. And he really put it together in the blocking department. That jumps off the screen, but also running after the catch and just that Purdue play, I think is going to be etched in a lot of people's minds where it's the end of the half and it was iffy. I remember watching the game with my grandpa. My grandpa was like, they should try to score here. And I was thinking along the lines of, let's just go on to halftime. We have the lead. Gramps was right. He's watched a lot more football than I have. But that worked because of Brent Strange. And he dragged those tacklers all the way to the end zone. So that really stood out to me. He's been the most consistent. He's probably been the most consistent receiver if you consider the tight ends receivers that we had this year. So very impressed by the way he developed, and I think he's going to be a good player. I'm with you though. I want to see how he tests at the combine because I think that's going to tell the story of where he gets drafted. But I think regardless, he's going to be a productive player in the NFL.
Just imagine how the season. I mean, they're probably not in the Rose Bowl if it wasn't for Brenton Strange for numerous points in the season. I mean, he really did a bunch. So I agree there.
Yeah. And you know something, we bring up the Sean Clifford against Purdue a lot. Well, if we don't have Brent Strange against Purdue, we don't beat Purdue either. So it's important to note that. Yeah,
Tyler Johnson. Tyler Warren did play, but Theo Johnson did not play in that Purdue game. So we'll see Juice Scruggs and Brenton Strange one more time. I just wanted to say also, we do plan on doing like an award show. Maybe not the first episode back. We'll probably talk specifically Penn State, Utah aftermath, but probably the episode after that we'll probably do like a season end of wrap up show, if you will, where we'll give out some awards and whatnot. So we're looking for some names of some awards. Maybe get some creativity with that. That'd be fun. So if you have some suggestions, I'm all ears there. Jacob Sparrow on YouTube says, I consider tight end position a de facto receiver and would agree with he is the most consistent. Yeah, I agree. Show schedule, new transfer. Going to be talking about that in just a second, but Penn State's getting a little bit better at the defensive back position and clearly in the name department. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Hashtag PSU in the NFL, Utah preview, and we'll finish off with some fan questions. Not going to really talk recruiting today. Well, briefly, we'll mention it briefly. I got a couple things on it, but not too much recruiting today. That 2023 class pretty much cemented. A couple of names to maybe know that we talked about before. But now the transfer portal is picking up a little bit, and I think is going to pick up a lot in the next week as these games end as well. And so we'll keep an eye out there. Let's talk Duck. Let's talk Duck. When I first found out about this, Sean, today, I'm still not sure if I'm over it yet, to be honest with you. Like, it's not just it came out of like left field to a certain degree, but it was also like, could it be more perfect? And that is defensive back from North Carolina, Storm Duck. Storm Duck. Storm Duck will be transferring to Penn State. He's a cornerback at heart. He was a second team All ACC this year. If you want to watch how should I say this? The North Carolina defense wasn't very good last year. If you want to see that for yourself, go watch the Oregon game that's on right now. Although they're doing pretty good right now, but still, they'll probably get exposed at some point. Duck has battled some injuries throughout his career, and so that's something to pay attention to. He's been around for a while. He has 1 year of eligibility left, but he's been injured quite a few times so far in his tenure. Played a lot last year, though. I think he had 4 interceptions, 10 pass breakups. Originally a 3-star guy. Good height, Sean. 6 foot 1 inch. Got a decent amount of size to him. He can come in and really help out, right? I mean, if you're trying to figure out which one of the true freshmen might have played or been in that, I guess, too deep at the cornerback starting positions, you don't have to worry about that anymore because Storm Duck is going to be there. And I think this is a good investment. I think if you're going to go get somebody, you go get somebody like this guy. He's got experience. He's got playing time against respectably good offenses in the Power 5 level. You're not taking like a project risk here. Storm Duck's got the size to play in the Power 5 level. I like this. It came out of left field, in my opinion, but I really like this. This seems good.
Yeah, we talked pretty extensively about the need to get another cornerback to go along with Johnny Dixon and Kalen King, and I think Storm Duck fits the bill, and it's going to be fun to say his name. Well, as long as he's playing well, then it could get old. If he's not playing well, maybe it could get old fast. But honestly, I love the addition. I really do. 3 interceptions. He had a forced fumble last year, 10 pass breakups. I mean, that just kind of screams Manny Diaz cornerback. Just a stat line, looking at a stat line like that. Guy that could turn the ball, that could turn the other team over, gets active, breaking up passes. So really happy with this addition. Obviously, we all know what we need at receiver, but we wanted a defensive back as well in this transfer portal. So good on the staff for going and hunting some duck. What was that show? Back in the day, those guys all had long beards.
Stooges?
No, Duck Dynasty.
Oh, Duck Dynasty.
Remember those guys?
Dude, there's probably going to be some Nittanyville banners of that for sure.
Yeah.
Duck Dynasty. Yeah, I forgot about that show. What I was going to add to that, his cousin, Clifton Duck, played for App State and played against Penn State. So if that last name sounds familiar to you, that is why. Clifton Duck was actually a really good corner for App State. So I guess there you go. But his cousin Storm Duck will be joining Penn State. Threw up there on YouTube, Penn State portal needs. There's your favorite color, green, up there for cornerback that we have now colored in. Wide receiver, like you mentioned, still very much part of the conversation. Dante Cephas still trying to hurdle some academic situations, trying to get cleared to transfer. But it seems like Penn State's still in the right department there. Don't really know who, if they do take a second wide receiver, who that would be right now, as Caden Prather is still probably leaning Maryland. Dante Thornton is potentially leaning Miami. So not really clear cut on who that may be second wide receiver is. I guess I also wanted to mention I'm curious if they go after the defensive back from Wake Forest now. Was it Gavin? I can't never remember
forget this guy's name. I would say we probably don't.
That would be my guess too.
I would say that door probably closed.
I don't know why I can't remember his name.
Is it Holmes?
Is it Gavin Holmes? That sounds close. Maybe. I'm looking
Yep,
it up right.
I am correct.
Gavin Holmes. Yes, sir.
Yep.
Oh, I think. Oh, well, maybe that's why. He officially committed to Texas.
Oh, so he's not coming.
No. There we go. We're finding things out live. Dave, excited for the matchup with Penn State in just a few days. I believe Dave is a Utah fan based off that comment. Thanks for joining us, Dave. Hope you're doing well. But yeah, so it looks like Gavin Holmes with the Texas. Look at us figuring things out, as we probably should have figured out beforehand. But that makes sense then. So maybe, who knows if they were waiting for Holmes to say yay or nay. We knew he was visiting Texas, but a lot of people thought since there was a visit scheduled for Penn State that he was going to visit, but I guess not. So I think they're probably good at corner. Still want them to take at least one wide receiver. Heard nothing as far as defensive line right now, which I think is kind of interesting. I still like the one guy from Temple that I wouldn't be able to tell you his name again. Nope. I don't remember what his name was. Was it Varner? I think it was something Varner. Defensive lineman for Temple. Did some good things. But yeah, otherwise we just kind of just keep on trucking along here. I think it's going to get heat up more. We said once the 2023 class is kind of solidified, we were going to see see some things moving around a little bit. I still think, Sean, post Rose Bowl, you're going to see some Penn State guys enter the portal. I've said that a couple times now. Darian Varner was the guy from Temple. I'll double check to see if he's still out there. Did I say Darian? Darian Varner. My goodness. No, I don't think he has. I don't think he also has his phone number in his Twitter profile. Which
that's the phone number guy.
No, that's a different guy. There's two guys. Yeah, there's two guys with the phone number things. So that's bold as well, if you ask me. But that's where they're at. Sean, I wanted to briefly, since we're not going to talk about it for most of the show, since we're going to focus a lot on the Rose Bowl. I wanted to mention the 2023 class and just briefly mention that, as you can see on the graphic, Conrad Hussey's in red. Conrad Hussey did flip from Penn State to Florida State, staying relatively at home. Not as home as he would be if he would have went to Miami, but staying in the same state in Florida will be a Florida State Seminole. It stinks, but the positive side of this is it was at a position where they are getting a lot of guys. They are getting a bunch of defensive backs. Sean, if I had to say, if you lost Conrad Hussey, but you lost, but you gained Kavion Keys, would you take that trade?
I would, just really because of the position. Kavion Keys. I mean, look, you want as many pass rushers as you could have, and I think Kavion Keys kind of provides that. He's going to be a linebacker, but he's going to get after the quarterback. I heard a comp, and I forget who made it the other day, of Kavion Keys to Manny Bowen. And watching him, I could see that. And, I would take that over Conrad Hussey, especially right now, because I feel like we're good at safety for now. We might have to take a couple next year, and it sucks. I mean, I'm not going to be sour grapes about it. I wanted Conrad Hussey. I wanted him to be in the class, but I mean, you win some, you lose some. So that is nature of recruiting, especially Florida recruiting.
Yeah, and Dave on YouTube says, thanks, I've subscribed. Hope you guys beat down UCLA and the condoms for years to come in the Big Ten. So that's pretty funny. We appreciate that. Just breaking news here on the pod live. Kansas was down a bunch, and they have now tied it and are going into overtime with Arkansas, aka Arkansas.
I turned that off. Wow.
Yeah, it was bad early. And our boy Barrett Sale from CBS was talking about how Arkansas is showing why the SEC is so good, and now they are in overtime, which makes me laugh out loud because I think that's so funny. So don't turn us off, but put the Kansas-Arkansas game on as well, if you can. I didn't realize I flipped myself over there, but that's okay. Sean, I just want to throw up the early enrollees one more time, if we can. The 11 early enrollees in a 2023 class will literally be here in like a week ish. So, tight end Mega Barnwell, offensive lineman Alex Burkmeyer, linebacker Tony Rojas, defensive back Elliot Washington, offensive lineman Anthony Dunca. I don't know why I struggle with his name. And then, of course, the struggler of all strugglers, tight end Joey Schlaffer, cornerback Lamont Payne, quarterback Jackson Smolik, offensive lineman Javen Williams, cornerback Zion Tracy, and linebacker Tamir Robinson. So those 11 guys will all be enrolling early this spring semester. I think that's all we have as far as all that shenanigans.
Sounds good. Corey?
Yes.
Oh, yes, you have to do PSU in the NFL.
Yeah, sorry.
Yep, no problem.
Scared me for a second.
Yep.
This is a long list. I went a little overboard here. This is probably the longest list we've ever had. And I didn't even include everything. I could have included more. There is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 Penn State players that made impacts. Enough of an impact to include on here. But, there's guys on here that played, and I didn't even include Daquan Jones isn't on here. Jordan Stout isn't on here. And there's a couple more. As well as, there's 44 players right now on Penn State, on NFL rosters from Penn State. I'm going to run through all these real quick. Please save your applause to the end. Tip of the tongue of the teeth of the lips. Red leather, yellow leather. Red leather, yellow leather. Trace McSorley, 24 45, 217, 1 interception in his loss in his starting role. Don't know if he's still playing. I don't know if Colt McCoy's back or not. Not
sure. Yeah, Trace was all right. But it was just like when it was time to win the game, you just...
Yeah. I don't want to talk about it. Connor McGovern, 13th start for the Cowboys. Miles Sanders, 21 rushes, 65 yards. Lost me my fantasy game. I lost both my fantasy semis this weekend. So I scored over 100 points, so I really can't. I'm not too upset about it. But yeah, anyway. Etor Gross-Matos, 5 tackles, 1 quarterback hit, 1 fumble recovery. Robbie Gold, 13 points, 3 for 3 on field goals. Chris Godwin, 8 catches for 63 yards. He could have scored a touchdown or two to help out the fantasy league as well. Blake Gillikin had 6 punts, 42 yards, average 2 inside the 20. Pat Fryermuth, 7 catches for 66 yards. Jahan Dotson, 6 catches, 76 yards, and a touchdown. If he scores 1 more touchdown, I think he will tie the Redskins single season record for wide receiver for touchdowns, which is pretty crazy considering he was... I'm sorry. Commanders. Still not used to that. The football team. The Washington football team Commanders of Skins. Which is just nuts, though, that he's doing that, and he missed so many games due to that hamstring injury. Saquon Barkley, 14 carries, 84 yards, and a touchdown. Had a really nice run for a touchdown. And if you haven't seen that, it's definitely on our Twitter. Maybe I'll get that out on Instagram and TikTok as well. Ryan Bates, 14th start of the season for Ryan Bates. Jaquan Brisker, 7 tackles and a sack. He looked really, he's fun to watch. There's no other way to say it. Adrian Amos, 11 tackles for another Penn State safety. And Will Fries got his 6th start of the year for the Colts. Fries and McGovern are 2 guys that I just cannot believe are starting in the NFL, Sean, still to this day.
McGovern's a little less surprising because McGovern always had the measurables, always. Like, you always thought like he could be a solid player at the next level, but the Cowboys' offensive line is not an easy line to start on. So you have to give him a lot of credit. Will Fries, though, really surprised me. I never thought of that guy as a guy that's going to start in the NFL. But hey, credit to him. Yeah, Dotson, when he's healthy, he's as good as any rookie in this class, as good as any rookie receiver in this class. And that's saying a lot because Garrett Wilson is off to a great start. Christian Watson, but Dotson's right up there. He just had that hamstring that lingered the whole year, but he seems to be over that now, and he's really turning it up a notch. Amos played against my Dolphins on Christmas. It was terrible. The game was terrible. Amos, he had 11 tackles, but he really wasn't that great, if I'm being honest. He got burnt a couple times by Waddle and Hill, but lots of guys get burnt by Waddle and Hill, so I mean, it happens. Yeah. So and Miles had the couple fumbles. I got attacked on Twitter for saying, I know, shocker, for saying there was Penn State crime. I thought I saw Micah force a fumble on Miles Sanders. It wasn't that, and I had a lot of angry Eagle fans coming at me, going, "Oh, Micah had nothing to do with that." And I was like, "All right, Jesus Christ, people."
How dare you make a mistake?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that sounds like Twitter. But follow us on Twitter at Hardcore
still follow us.
Yeah, let's get it right out of that. 5-star review plug in the middle, like we always do here. If you're on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed. If you're listening on Apple, please drop a 5-star review. We'll send you a sticker, and we'll read it on the show, and we'd appreciate that. Let's get into the preview, shall we?
There's a game?
Yeah, there is a game. Monday.
The Utes.
Penn State, Utah, Rose Bowl. Got some fancy stats up there for you like we do for all of these. Things that I deem important to the game of football. You could disagree and say there's other stats that are more important, but I don't really think there are any stats more important than the ones that we put up here. So rushing average and rushing defense. I mean, Utah is good. 5.54 yards per carry. They're one of the best running teams in the country. And then they do it by committee. I think the biggest part of the running game, honestly, is what Cam Rising can do on like a 3rd and 4, a 3rd and 6, and kind of break the defense's back when he decides to take off. That can sometimes be the difference. And so that's something to keep an eye on. You know, a 3rd and 4 and he picks up 15. That also helps the average out a little bit too. And I will say playing USC's defense twice probably helped their average a little bit as well. I'm just kidding, but it's just funny to say. Was a little surprised that their passing per attempt was at 8.1. But I mean, they hit on some big plays. I guess I should say this. They throw it underneath a lot, but then they demand a defense that is already tired from getting ran against. They demand that defense then tackles in space after they've been run against. And so it's a good strategy. They won't have Dalton Kincaid, who we've mentioned multiple times, the tight end, leading receiver for them. But they do have other guys. For the blog, he had a good breakdown of Utah's wide receivers. I highly recommend you check that out. But anyway, passing per attempt, that's where that's at. We know Penn State's defense is going to be really good against the pass. Be interesting. And it's just going to be fun to watch Utah's offense versus Penn State's defense, Sean. I'm very excited for that. Probably the most impressive stat by either team is Utah's 3rd down conversion, 49.7%. I mean, you're converting 3rd downs half the time. That's why they're the Pac-12 champions. I mean, right there. Like that is, as Sean gives us a nice little sneeze off mic there. Bless you, Sean. 49.7%. You are completing half of your 3rd downs. That's if they go 49.7% against Penn State, they're probably going to win the game. And so, to me, that's really the stat that Penn State's got to figure out. Can they get off the field? Can they get Cam Rising uncomfortable? And then can they not let Cam Rising get out of the pocket and do some voodoo magic and pick up 1st downs? To me, that's the biggest thing, Sean. Looking at this side of the field.
Yeah. I think that's getting off the field on 3rd down is such a valuable thing. And when you're playing against a team that converts basically half of them, yeah, that's a challenge. And I think you could look at some things and feel okay if you're Penn State. from just a stats perspective, but that one should really, really scare you. Now, Penn State's defense has been pretty decent on third down this year, I would say. I think they've been pretty good. But yeah, Utah's going to present a challenge in that way. They're when I look at Utah, when I watch them, they don't strike me as your typical Pac-12 team, and they never do. Like, they strike me as like a Big Ten team. So that's why I think it's going to be an interesting matchup between us.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to add to the whole getting off the field on third down. Penn State has had times or moments where they've struggled to do that. Not a bunch, but there's been moments. For example, the Auburn game early, they were struggling to get off on third down a little bit. That one series against Indiana at the beginning of I think it might have been their second series of the game. They struggled to get off the field. Obviously times against Ohio State, obviously times against Michigan. Most of the times against Michigan, they were third and short, which I think would be Utah's blueprint to beat Penn State, is to keep it a third and short. So there have been moments like that. And so Penn State's got to find ways. I'm not too worried about Manny Diaz finding ways to get creative and to distract and to confuse Cam Rising, but also let his dogs eat. Penn State will be going into this. They have the better players. I mean, across the board, they have the better players. Maybe not clearly the better players in the trenches. You could maybe argue as far as rushing offense, rushing defense, just straight up size, but everywhere else they have better players. And so the key really, I think, is Manny Diaz, get yourself in a situation where your better players can prove that they're better. And that is rushing the passer, that is guarding the deep ball, and that is making Cam Rising uncomfortable. And I think that plays really, really much into that whole third down conversion percentage, right? I mean, Utah is not going to convert half of their third downs if their third down average attempt is like a 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7. But if their third down average is like 3 or 4, yeah, I can see them converting 50%, and that's obviously not going to be acceptable. That's not going to get the job done or really give Penn State much of a chance to win this game.
Yeah, if you're Utah, and it's probably the most obvious thing in the world, you look at what Michigan did and you try to replicate that, and you hope Penn State hasn't learned from that. And you have a competitive, gutsy quarterback like Cam Rising, who's been in big games before, and he can make some things happen. Like Corey said, from a running perspective, they have a running back by committee. One of them isn't going to be playing in this game, but they're still going to have a healthy amount of they're still going to have a pretty decent stable of running backs. They're going to use probably two of them primarily, and Rising. So if you could get into 3rd and short, if you could get in this, if you could get to 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3, you could use your whole playbook, and that's such a benefit. And that's Jim Harbaugh's MO, and that's really been Kyle Whittingham's MO for his time out at Utah. You remember when Michigan played Utah back when we would have been in school? I think it was the first game of the year, and Utah really took it to them. Remember that?
I don't even remember that, to be honest with you.
I think it was 2015. I think it was Harbaugh's first ever game at Michigan.
I don't even remember. I believe you.
Yeah, that really impressed me. I think that was the night that Joel Platts said Harbaugh's the best coach in America, and I was like, wow.
Our Utah fan Dave says that Cam Rising was injured after the first USC game and hasn't been the same since. So we'll have to keep that in mind moving forward too, and how much that plays a role into it as well. Let's flip it over to the Penn State offense and Utah defense side. This isn't all we're going to talk about the Utah offense or anything, so don't feel like we're already done or anything. But just from the statistical standpoint, Penn State's not a bad rushing team this year. 4.77. I just want to reiterate, they knew how awful they heard about how awful they were running the ball all offseason. and they came out and they proved some people wrong. And a lot of people said, "Oh, I'll wait until I see it." Well, you've seen it now. I don't remember exactly what it was last year. I think it was 3.3 yards per carry. It was something awful like that. And they're up to 4.77 yards per carry. So massive, massive improvement there. Passing per attempt has been right around 7.5 pretty much the entire season. So that is what it is. Third down percentage has been bad. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Penn State's third down percentage hasn't been great at times when they put themselves in good positions, and it's actually then gone up from what it was after like the Ohio State game because they've been able to get in better situations with some of these opponents towards in November. But still, 36.5% is not that great. You kind of want to see that number in the 40s. But I mean, how important is it for the Penn State to get the running game going to, again, keep those third down attempts manageable as well? I mean, Sean Clifford, Cam Rising are very similar in a lot of ways as far as how they operate. And if you give them easy third down situations, they can tear you apart quickly and effectively. But it's keeping Sean Clifford out of third and long multiple times. It's getting Katron Allen and Nick Singleton going. And then finishing the job in the red zone, which Penn State's done a great job scoring touchdowns in the red zone all year. I also wanted to highlight maybe the second glaring statistic about Utah. We talked about how good their third down conversion is. It's phenomenal. However, their red zone touchdown defense is pretty mid, if not just straight below average. They're allowing touchdowns 67.5% of the time, which, just to give you an idea, like, I mean, Penn State, one of the best teams in the country at it, only allows touchdowns 43-ish% of the time. So,
Yep.
they're, I mean, that's big. I mean, that potentially could be, if you think this game could be a 3-point swing either way, if Penn State holds Utah to a field goal and Utah is unable to hold Penn State to a field goal, that's 3 or 4 points that could be the difference in the game. So that's something I wanted to point out as well when looking at the statistics this way is Penn State gets in the red zone. Statistically, you should probably bet that they're going to probably score. That's kind of what it's looking like.
Yeah, that's probably the one similarity that last year's team had with this year's team is both were very good in the red zone. And both defenses were very good in the red zone. And yeah, if you're not able to push it in against Penn State, I mean, we have players too on offense, and we're going to be able to, and we do a decent job of scoring when we get in the red zone. So we're scoring at 75%. So that's pretty good. So yeah, we're going to make you pay, So yeah, I'm these, looking at these stats, the passing per attempt really kind of stuck out to me. And it kind of, in my mind, shows how similar Cam Rising and Sean Clifford are, because pass per attempt, Penn State 7.5, Utah 8.1. So they're right in the same ballpark. And I really think this is a game that's going to come down to quarterbacks. And we've had other games this year where we're like, well, I mean, there's a lot of other things at play, but I think this is really a Cam Rising versus Sean Clifford game. And whoever plays better is probably going to win.
It's interesting you say that, because when I begin to look at this game, I really think it's about the surrounding cast. We argued a little bit before about would you take Cam Rising or Sean Clifford. You'd say you'd take Cam Rising. I said I would take Sean Clifford. Like you said, the stats are pretty much relatively the same. I would probably give Cam Rising the edge statistically. He does a little bit more with his legs. But I really think it's going to be who can support their quarterback enough. I don't think either fan base would argue that their quarterbacks are above average at best. They're not going to win you. Clearly, they're not going to win you a college football playoff game. Theoretically, Cam Rising can come back, I believe. But Sean Clifford can't. We know what he is capable of doing and what he's not capable of doing. And I really think who is going to support their quarterback the most is going to be who wins this game. So that means who has the better running back by committee. I think I would give Penn State the slight edge there. Who's going to have the better offensive line? I'd probably lean it towards Utah, but we haven't really seen Penn State's offensive line at full strength since October. Is Olu Fashanu going to play? We know Juice Scruggs is now going to play. Is Caden Wallace going to play? That very well could change that whole thing. And if Penn State's able to run the rock effectively and Sean Clifford's able to just dink it and dump it to his tight ends and to his young wide receivers, I think that's really the difference. We know that Cam Rising doesn't have his favorite weapon. We know Sean Clifford doesn't have his favorite weapon. So it's going to be who else can step up and support these guys. I think that really is going to be the difference. I think you can expect Sean Clifford to probably have an interception. You can probably expect Cam Rising, honestly, to probably have at least one mistake as well. But who else is going to maybe pick them up? Who else is going to be the X factor for their offense to score maybe that one touchdown you weren't expecting that might end up being the difference?
Yeah, and I'll rephrase it a little bit. Which quarterback doesn't make more mistakes? And because Clifford has gotten in trouble with mistakes throughout his time at Penn State, but Cam Rising has as well. And they've both had games where they've had multiple turnovers, and those turnovers were costly. So being able to take care of the ball, manage the game, who could manage the game better? Is the running game important? Of course, especially when you're playing against a team like Utah. Like, this is just a flash. Utah is a flashier version of Wisconsin, and their quarterback play is typically better. Cam Rising is like Patrick Mahomes compared to Graham Mertz and most Wisconsin quarterbacks. So it's typically a little better, but they're going to run at you, throw it, run at you, throw it. And they're going to be stout on defense. You want to go beyond Wisconsin, they're a lot like Michigan. They're going to play physical. Like, they're kind of the big bullies in the Pac-12. There's a reason why they won the conference 2 straight years. They just kind of push everybody else around out west. So, and look at the games where Utah's lost this year. They lost to Florida. Cam Rising wasn't good. They lost to UCLA, where he did actually put up quite a few points, but I believe he had a few turnovers mixed in there as well. And they lost at Oregon in a game that they probably should have won. So, and Cam Rising wasn't good in that game. And then you look at the 2 games Penn State lost. Clifford wasn't good enough against Ohio State. And he wasn't the main reason. He certainly wasn't the main reason we lost at Michigan, but he didn't really help matters. So I think a lot of this is going to be about being able to manage the game successfully.
Yeah, I think what you said there is kind of a good point. I like looking at that Oregon game. If I'm a Penn State fan, I'm looking at that Oregon game and saying, okay, that's kind of the blueprint to a certain degree. Cam Rising, 3 interceptions. Oregon was able to throw the ball pretty well on Utah that day. To me, that's what I'm interested in. And that Oregon team, by the way, is currently down by 7 to North Carolina at halftime. And just to give you a Kansas-Arkansas update, both of them scored touchdowns in the first round of overtime. Both of them scored touchdowns and 2-point conversions in the second time of overtime. So it is 53-53 heading in to the third overtime, which I believe now starts with just 2-point conversions. So we're about to see 2-point conversions back and forth in the Arkansas-Kansas game, which is going on right now. But yeah, Sean, I think both teams, you could argue, maybe have games that they wish they could have had back during the regular season, which I think, again, just is kind of phenomenal that these 2 teams have matched up. And I think there's question marks, right, about both teams. Like, what is Penn State going to be able to do offensively consistently enough? And on the other side of things, everyone thinks about what Utah did in that Pac-12 championship. And I think that little bit of recency bias, because they looked so good against a pretty pitiful USC defense, I think that's why they're favored by 3 points right now, 2.5, wherever. I think that's honestly it. Like Utah, good defense, and their offense looked good against USC. Penn State, nobody has watched Penn State since the Ohio State game. Let's just be honest. And I think that's where that 2.5 spread's kind of coming from right now.
Yeah, Penn State after the Ohio State game really hit the back burner nationally, and people just haven't been paying attention. Kind of because you look at who they played, and I don't know, none of those really even come close to a marquee matchup. But then you have Utah, who, even though they lost, they were in a big game against Oregon, and they beat pants off the Heisman Trophy winner in the Pac-12 championship game. And look, you have to give them a lot of credit for doing that. And I know we don't think too highly of USC's defense, but the Utah had a bunch of sacks in that game. They were able to contain Caleb Williams and USC, and Caleb did get hurt in that game, but they were able to really limit what USC was able to do. It was a typical Lincoln Riley performance, honestly, in a big game. And, you have to, and they did it twice. Like, it is very, very difficult to beat a good team twice. Very difficult. Why do you think Michigan doesn't want to play Ohio State again? It's because they know that to be able to beat a good team, even if you think you're better. And I think Michigan is better than Ohio State. And I think Utah is better than USC. Even if you are, it's just it's a tough mountain to climb twice to beat a top 10 team or a top 15 team for that matter. So, I don't think Ohio State would really be too crazy about playing Penn State again if they had to play them. So, you have to give the Utes a ton of credit. And if you're a Utah fan, you're probably frustrated, like Penn State fans are, with how the season ended up. Because if you beat Florida, who you definitely should have beaten, if you beat Oregon, who you should have beaten, you're in the playoff. Like, you are in over Ohio State, no question about it. But it's not the way the cookie crumbled, unfortunately, for Ute fans.
Yeah, I'm curious too. I don't think they have any Rose Bowl fatigue. But playing there twice kind of makes you think a little bit about if that is a factor, but I don't think it is. A lot of people that are taking Utah, I saw media wise, are like, "Oh, they're back, and this time they're going to win it." I'm like, well, that doesn't really have any effect on the game, but sure. Devon Bailey, slot receiver, wanted to mention him. 595, 5 touchdowns, quick guy. Good double move. I think he's kind of the guy you have to pay attention to for Penn State's defense. They got a couple wide receivers that all can do sort of different things, but he's the guy that's in the slot that can maybe make you pay. Is maybe going to be the favorite target now with Kincaid out. So that's someone I'd be paying attention to. And I really like Jaquindon Jackson. I think this guy was really fun to watch in that conference championship game. Runs tough. They're very much running back by committee. Even during the beginning parts of the season, they get a lot of guys involved. Cam Rising, obviously highly involved. He had 6 rushing touchdowns. But I think Penn State is going to be able to commit more guys to the run if they want to. I'd expect them to have a decent amount of, 7-8 boxes loaded against Utah and sort of daring Cam Rising to figure out who is actually blitzing and then make plays. And I think they trust their corners on the outside, even though Penn State will not have Joey Porter Jr. I think that should be the game plan. We thought that should be the game plan when they played Michigan, but that wasn't what happened either. Sean, are you a little bit worried at all as far as Manny defense and having maybe too much time to prepare for this Utah offense? Has that crossed your mind at all yet?
Yeah, it has. Because don't forget the Michigan game was off a bye, and you're just going off and also keeping in mind the style of play that Utah has. And it's very, very similar to Michigan, where Michigan has a couple playmakers on the outside, but they're going to run at you and then beat you with those guys, when they have opportunities. And I agree with you on Vele. They have a guy, and it's too bad we don't have Storm Duck this year. Be a Storm Duck versus Money Parks, I think would be a fun matchup. Just based off the name alone. And like you said, they're not going to have Kincaid. Jackson is their home run guy. He has been the whole year, and they're going to have Micah Bernard as well. And Rising gets involved. Excuse me. Also in the run game. So. Yeah, and that's not just, and we haven't even mentioned their offensive line. Like, this is one of the best offensive lines in America. Like, Utah believes strongly in leading with the tip of the spear. So they're gonna come at us. And I really hope this is a PJ Mustipher game. It is a PJ Mustipher game, but I hope like he could ride off into that California sunset and really be happy with the way he plays, because we're going to need him in a big way in this one.
Just a guy who, I don't want to say didn't have a good year. I think PJ Mustipher did have a good year. I don't think he had a very splashing, illustrated good year. Did a lot of the nitty-gritty work. But you're right. We'd like to see him maybe get paid off with a good final game against Utah. Just giving everyone the final update. Arkansas wins 55-53 in triple overtime over Kansas. So Kansas gets all the way back, unable to get the job done. But definitely a more interesting game than what people expect. I'm just excited for that. And the defensive line in general, right? Like, everyone's going to be healthy. Like, I'm excited to see what Adisa Isaac can do. I'm excited to see what Nick Tarburton's going to do. Is he going to come out with his head on fire? Is Chob Robinson going to be 100% and ready to rock and roll? Obviously, the linebackers, we have no idea what Curtis Jacobs' plan is yet. Is he playing his final game? And if that's the case, is he going to come out firing? Obviously excited for what Abdul Carter is going to do. Jair Brown will be playing, and it's his last game. So there's a couple of really important players that decided to play in the Rose Bowl that this will be their last game. And you just got to think defensively, maybe you can't use it as much and harness it as much on offense, but you can use it on defense. And it could be very exciting to see what these guys are potentially able to do and how they're going to fly around the football early.
And something, I think it's a big thing that these guys want to be there, because a lot of times with these bowls, if you don't make, and for some programs, if you don't make the playoff, this season's kind of seen as a failure, and you have a million different opt-outs, and even the guys that are playing, they're not playing at 100%. I don't think that's going to be the case in this one. I think both these teams really want to get after it. Utah has, again, in my mind, they should have won the Ohio State game last year. I was bummed when they didn't win, and they have a chance. They have a chance to come back and win this one now. They didn't have a whole ton of opt-outs, neither did we. Penn State last year when we played Arkansas, you could make an argument if everybody played, maybe we win, but I don't think our hearts are really in it like they needed to be. This is different. Like, Jair Brown actually went live on Instagram yesterday on the airplane on the way out to LA. And these guys are, you could just tell, man, you could tell there's a certain energy around this team. Like, they really, really want it. And to only have one opt-out in the year 2022 is impressive, because I don't really count Parker as an opt-out, because in my mind, he probably would have played if he was healthy. So to only have one opt-out, I mean, these guys are bought in and they are laser focused. And I would love to see them get this one, because there's a question I have for Corey later that I want to get to, but I'm going to leave you all in suspense.
Ooh, suspense. Well, let's flip it over to the other side and let's talk Utah defense a little bit. Clark Phillips, the third, cornerback for Utah, will not be playing. Led the team with 6 interceptions this year. The rest of the team combined only had 6 interceptions. So pretty big loss there with Clark Phillips not playing. Gabe Reed, defensive end, had 5.5 sacks. And their safeties are their tackle leaders. And Cole Bishop and RJ Hubert, both of those guys are studs. Whenever you have 2 safeties as your leading tacklers, it does question a little bit, like how much are they playing towards the line of scrimmage? Not necessarily the personnel themselves, but the scheme. Is Penn State going to be able to spread them out enough? Is Penn State going to take enough shots to keep some of those safeties back, to create holes for Katron Allen and for Nick Singleton? We've talked a lot about it this year, Sean, but Utah's really good at kind of stopping offenses from doing what they want to do. Look at what they did to Oregon for most of that game. I'm just curious to see what Mike Yurcich's game plan is against this Utah defense. Is he going to be able to throw the ball enough early to then create those sort of running lanes that we've seen Penn State have success when they do it that way? Are they going to come out and just try to run the rock? We've seen them try to do that, and I don't think that's really typically very successful when they try to just force the square peg into the round hole, if you will, or whatever the case may be, whatever that expression is, if I got it backwards. Yeah, I'm curious, Sean, how that's going to go down, because I think that could be, we talk about these teams that are like Wisconsin. You want to get the lead early against these guys. You want to make Utah sort of come from behind. You don't want to be coming from behind against Utah. So I think the first 2 quarters are very, very important to see how this Penn State offense schematically approaches this Utah defense.
Yes. If we learn anything from the last Rose Bowl, don't come out and throw 2 straight interceptions to start the game. That would be more than ideal, especially against this Utah team. But in all seriousness, yeah, like they are top 15 of the nation in sacks, so they do an excellent job of getting after the quarterback. I think Penn State's top 10 in sacks, so that's kind of something that we share. We're both able to do it. Cole Bishop is the guy that was pretty impressive to me. They do a lot of different things with him. Has a couple tackles for loss from that safety spot. But yeah, like I said, that USC game really impressed me. Just being able to get after Caleb Williams and really and be disruptive, disrupt their passing game. And yeah, Clark Phillips not playing, that's definitely going to hurt. But it gets offset a bit by Joey Porter Jr. not playing on the other side. But yeah, they do, that they're always going to be a tough team, Utah on defense. But I share what Corey says in that you don't want to really fall behind on these guys. You want to, and I think the best way to do it is get your running backs involved early. Have easy throws for Sean Clifford, and Cliff just be able to manage the game. Please, Sean. Please just manage the game and keep those attempts under 35.
Yeah, preferably under 30, right? I mean, 30 is the
preferably under 30.
Sweet. If he's under 30, you're feeling like Penn State's going to win the game. We've talked about that before. People don't remember. Sure, I have it in my notes all the way back, but this probably isn't accurate anymore. But it was for at least a little bit when Clifford was under 30 pass attempts. He was 16-0. Not assuming an injury or whatnot. So that was at least to a certain point of the season that was the case. So yeah, preferably keep Clifford's attempts under 30. I was going to add to something you said there, but yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what happens because the thing is, no one really challenges Utah the way that Utah challenges other teams, I think. And so I'm excited to see, what a good running game in Penn State is going to do to this Utah defense for 4 quarters, right? Like we usually see Utah being the aggressor on defense. Well, what happens when Penn State tries to be the aggressor back? That's what I'm excited for. I really think Penn State's got to find a way to run the ball. If they can run the ball, I think they win this game. But they've got to be able to run the ball, and that might mean having to throw it to run it, which Mike Yurcich has mentioned a couple times this season. Sean, I think we can maybe go into fan questions if you're ready.
I'm ready.
I'm ready. All right. Well, just drop it all the way out to here. Only 2 fan questions. Sean, maybe we'll include our posed questions to this as well. Since Sean decided a new little part of this will be each of us asking the other a question that we have not seen beforehand or anything to prepare for. So this is very terrifyingly good. But let's start with the fan questions first. One is sort of a good joke, so that should be funny. But fan question time here at Hardcore Penn State Football Rose Bowl edition. If you have a question, drop it at Hardcore PSUFB on Twitter. We're on Facebook as well. Let's get the first question. This is from fan favorite Einstein von Braun. Mister. Is Corey going to the Rose Bowl to break the curse? If not, and we lose, then can we blame him?
Yes.
Great question. For people that don't remember the curse, I just want to reiterate that back in 2016, I was a broke college student trying to go to the Rose Bowl, and my mom said, "Why would you want to go to the Rose Bowl? Well, don't you want to wait and just go to a playoff game next year?" And still to this day, I think my mom may have jinxed Penn State football until I go back to the Rose Bowl and break that curse. However, I will not be attending the Rose Bowl this year. So I would say, yes, you can blame me, but I think you can also blame my mom still. I think that's fair. Her for the long term, her, the short term, me, I guess.
Yes, I was about to say that. In 2017, my brother and his ex-girlfriend carved a pumpkin. It was around Halloween time. It was right before the Ohio State game, so it was right before our lives were all ruined for the 2017 season. And the pumpkin said, Penn State 2017 national champions. And I was like, Jesus Christ, guys, what are you doing? We have the biggest game of the year coming up, and you're already crowning us, but we haven't done anything yet. And they were off that Michigan high so I think that also contributes to the jinx as well. So you guys are welcome for no playoff appearances in 2017.
Yeah. But yeah, if you can blame, I will say this. I mean, to be fair, we had a fan reach out to us and said, "Hey, if you guys are trying to get out there, I wouldn't mind, supporting you, sponsoring you. If just, let me know where." Maybe the next time Penn State's in the Rose Bowl, we will be out there. Maybe. Hopefully. Yep. We'll see. Maybe if Penn State loses this one, I might have to go to the next one. I think regardless, I probably should get out to the Rose Bowl since I haven't been there yet. But
I've only been to one bowl game, and Penn State one. It was the Pinstripe Bowl.
Interesting.
Fun time.
One of the few ones I didn't go to, but that's mostly because I had family in Florida, so it's a little bit easier. Been to some awful ones. Capital One Bowl versus LSU in the mud, even though Penn State won. Was at the Outback Bowl when McGloin threw 5 interceptions to Urban Meyer's Florida. And a couple in between. So
we had the Ticket City Bowl.
No.
We all try to forget that one, but
I wasn't going to bring that up.
I was just morbidly curious.
I was going to say this, though. If Penn State's able to win this game, and I mean, James Franklin's going to have a Rose Bowl, a Fiesta Bowl, and a Cotton Bowl under his belt in a relatively easy relatively short amount of time. I know it's not a playoff appearance, and people are going to say, "Oh, you're just defending him." Still, 3 New Year's, 6 bowl wins, 4 appearances in 8 years is still pretty impressive, and that includes COVID. I don't know. I think that's pretty impressive nonetheless. But yeah.
Jim Harbaugh doesn't have one, right? He might have won one at Stanford. He might have won an Orange Bowl. That sounds right, but I don't think he won one in Michigan.
I don't think they. Maybe I'm wrong.
They typically lay eggs in bowls?
He wasn't with Stanford when McCaffrey was there, right?
Mm-mm. No, that was Shaw.
Because that was a Rose Bowl versus Iowa, wasn't it?
Yeah. McCaffrey just went nuts.
But that wasn't Harbaugh.
I think he won the Orange Bowl with luck.
Okay, that's weird. They were in the Orange Bowl.
It was. I think it was the way it used to be back then. The Rose Bowl had the national championship that year.
I see. Joey House asked us, what do you think the over-under of Drew Aller's snap count will be? I just threw this on there because I wanted to laugh at it. No offense to you, Joey, but we've talked about this a bunch. We don't expect Drew Aller to play unless it's a blowout or if Clifford gets hurt. Just don't think it's going to happen. Just don't see that as being realistically. Snap count, I guess I'll put the snap count over-under at,
0.5.
let's say Clifford maybe gets knocked, his helmet comes off for a play. So I'm going to put it at 1.5.
Yeah, and I'm taking the under. I don't think this is going to be a Drew Aller. I don't think this is going to be a Drew Aller game. I in a way, if Penn State's blowing them out, I hope it is.
And maybe it's the opposite, right? Trace McSorley came in. I mean, it wasn't because of a blowout, but Christian Hackenberg wasn't able to continue. Maybe something like that happens. Sean, what is your question for me?
Okay. Do you, Corey, consider this a great team if Penn State loses?
Oh, I like what you did there. For people that aren't aware of what we consider, we've had a lot of conversations about great teams versus good teams. And Sean likes to lump more great teams with good teams. I like to separate them out a little bit more. That's a good question. That's a really tough question. I would say they're a good team if they lose to Utah. You wouldn't have a ranked win. You really wouldn't have. You don't have a bowl win at that point. It's not like the Penn State 2016 team when they won the Big Ten championship had something to kind of show for it. Obviously, it beat Ohio State too. You could argue that 2019 team was a great team because they at least won the Cotton Bowl when it was all said and done. They beat Michigan. They won a bunch of games. They beat who they were pretty much supposed to beat, arguably. Yeah, I would say they're a good team. I throw a new category out for you and would even call them a really good team. But no, I don't think I would call them a great team. I definitely wouldn't call them an elite team.
We're in agreement.
I'm glad we're in agreement, Sean.
All right, what do you have for me?
Yeah, what do I have for you? So my question is, and this is a tough one, if excluding whatever happens in the Rose Bowl, and this is a mean question and a morbid question, if you had to see one of Katron Allen or Nick Singleton go into the transfer portal, which one would it be and why?
Well, neither, but I have to answer the question. No disrespect, obviously. I want both these guys to be Penn Staters forever. But Katron Allen. And I only say that because I think Singleton has better upside. But that's the only reason I say it. I love Katron Allen. I think he's a better running back than Nick Singleton right now. But I think Singleton's going to have the better career, and I think he has a chance to have, and I think he will have a better career at Penn State when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I'm not even going to say if I agree or disagree with that because I really don't know. I'm glad I don't have to answer that question. No, I don't know. I mean, seriously, I agree with what you said as far as I think Katron Allen currently is the better back. I can see the upside for Singleton, but I'm just like, do I roll the dice and say, I hope Singleton takes that next step? Or am I like, I would take what Katron Allen has provided so far for the next 3 years over hot and cold of whatever we might get from Nick Singleton. I think Nick Singleton has grown a bunch this season.
Hmm.
I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I'm kind of happy Singleton struggled in a way. Like during the year, he had some times where he was quiet, but I think it's good for. I think it's good for you sometimes to hit that wall and come out of it, because I think he came out of it a better back than he was at the beginning of the year, a more complete back.
Yeah, I mean he's following the blockers a little bit better. He had some fumbling issues that he had to get over. So yeah, I think that's a very good point. Thank you guys so much for the questions. We'll be obviously back soon with more of those. All right, Sean. I
Yep.
think it's time.
I think it's time to.
We can't even say that. It's time because we'll get sued.
Yep. Let's get ready to predict.
Do you have any idea who went first the last time?
That was a million years ago. So no, I'm going to let Corey go first because his name starts with a C. Mine starts with an S.
Okay. I'm not sure if I agree with that, but all right. All right. Well, here we go. Prediction time. Rose Bowl. First off, it's cool that Penn State's in the Rose Bowl. Just want to reiterate one more time that this is 10-2, and in the Rose Bowl is what I thought was going to happen at the beginning of the year. And it's just really cool that they're here. I know there's 2 Big Ten teams in a playoff. It's not the end goal for Penn State, but it's cool they're here. A lot of people have said that this game against Rose Bowl, against the Rose Bowl, in the Rose Bowl against Utah is one of the best games, if not the best game. That's not a playoff game. So people are going to be watching. It's a big stage. It's going to be a fun game. 2 quarterbacks that people admire and people respect, but maybe never got over the hump entirely and have a lot to prove and potentially both want to go out swinging. So I think that's an exciting storyline. It's going to be fun to watch the entire game. 2 really good defenses, 2 really good and respected head coaches. I just think when it's all said and done, the talent that helps the quarterback the most is going to win. And I think Penn State has that talent. I think they have more talent. I think their running backs are better. I think their offensive line is going to be at a better full strength. I think they have better tight ends, especially with Kincaid not playing. And I think they're going up against maybe a slightly not as effective secondary that will help the quarterback out enough. So I think Penn State wins. I think the running game has to get over 120-ish yards, and I think they do that. I have Penn State winning this game, and maybe it sounds a little disrespectful, but I have them winning 34-24. I think they get up early or they get up at some point in this game, and I just don't know if Utah is going to be able to dink and dunk it all the way down the field consistently enough to win this game. So I got Penn State 34-24. I think it's going to be a single possession game most of the way. And then Penn State's able to maybe get a field goal late to maybe put it on ice. But I got Penn State 34-24. Bold prediction, I think the Penn State defense gets 5 sacks. And I would say maybe only 3 of them comes from a defensive lineman. I think Abdul Carter gets a sack or 2. I think Jair Brown gets a sack or 2. And then towards the end there, I think it's going to be Cam Rising just having to hold on to the football too much. It's going to be a coverage sacks more than anything else towards the end. So that's what I got, Sean.
Yeah, this is one that when it was first announced, I felt really good about. And then I started not feeling too good about it. And now I'm kind of back to a midway point. And so what does that mean? I don't really know, honestly, what that means. But it means something. It means I feel pretty good about it. I like this Utah team. I like Kyle Whittingham a lot. I would trust Kyle. If James Franklin were to leave for another job, I would trust Kyle Whittingham to be the coach of Penn State. That's how highly I think of him. And there aren't a lot of guys that I would feel that way about, but he's one of them. He'd have to get some assistance from the East Coast, but I'd feel good about him running the program. So, that being said, I think we're going to win this one. I feel good about it. I feel pretty good about this one. For a lot of what Corey said, I agree with. Talent means something, and talent was kind of a wash in the Michigan game. Ohio State has more talent than Penn State, but we've dominated teams that aren't as talented as us. Really, the whole year. Take Purdue out, and I don't think we're going to dominate this team. I think this is the type of team that's going to stick around. I think Cam Rising is going to make plays. I think their running game is for real, and they're going to make things happen. They're going to make Cam Rising's life easier. And you're probably like, oh, well, why are you picking Penn State to win? Because we're going to make Cam Rising make mistakes. I think we're going to force him to make about 2 turnovers, and Sean Clifford is going to mostly take care of the ball. I think he's going to make less mistakes. I think he's going to be about as efficient, but it's going to be more about the mistakes. And he's not going to make as many. And I have Penn State winning 24-20.
I think that's a better number, to be honest with you. I think it probably will be low scoring. I couldn't really tell you how I got to 34. Maybe a turnover in there, something short field. Maybe Nick Singleton just breaks one. I'm not really sure how I got to 34 because I think 24-20 is a better number, to be honest with you.
I need a bold prediction too.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if the 2 turnovers was a bold prediction, but yeah, go ahead.
Singleton over 100 yards. I'm in a Nick Singleton mood tonight.
Yeah, apparently so. This was a question that was asked last episode, and I just think about it a lot. For the blog, he had a film breakdown of Chris Godwin. I don't know if you happen to watch that or not, but that was kind of cool because it was about the Rose Bowl. And I'm just like, man, I just want to see a Penn State wide receiver kind of break out like that. And I'm just keep thinking to myself, like, great wide receivers, like, you shouldn't have to be kind of begging them to break out. Like, they just do it. They just kind of take what they want. Like, they have that sort of attitude. And Chris Godwin kind of showed that in the Boston College game and in the Pinstripe Bowl that you were at. And then he had that attitude pretty much from then on out. And I'm just like, okay, so the Parker Washington's gone. Brenton Strange might be in a reduced role since he's declaring for the NFL. Like, who is going to step up and take ownership in the passing department, in the receiving department? And I think whoever it is, if somebody does step up, because if they don't, maybe Penn State loses this game. But if whoever it is, if it's Lambert Smith, if it's Mega, if it's Amari Evans, I don't care who it is. I have no idea who it's going to be. But I really think if somebody steps up, they could seriously have a lot of momentum and confidence heading into next year. And I really think that could be, I guess it could be very detrimental if it doesn't happen and very significant if it does happen to the success of Penn State next year. If we're going to talk about playoff opportunities next year, I think a lot of that has to start with 1 or 2 receivers getting confidence in this game right here and right now. So I don't want to point fingers at anybody, but there's been some people that have been here long enough where this is their chance, right? Like Parker Washington wasn't practicing for all these bowl practices leading up. Like they've had the opportunities to run with the ones like that as if they hadn't already. Like they've got all the tools, they've got all the experience. Somebody needs to step up and kind of, I guess, prove it. Just take it. And I really want to see that. I really do, Sean. I think it's going to be so important for next year that they have a guy like Chris Godwin. They have a guy like Jahan Dotson, et cetera.
Yeah, and I think that's where bowls still matter in that guys still take that leap from one season to another. It's a bridge from one season to another. And I think that's where, because, do the Bulls meet as much as they used to? No, not really. But those practices and then being able to, get people's attention going into the next season. Yeah, I could even argue Saquon made a big leap in the Rose Bowl because Saquon was a great player. We all knew that, but I don't think the whole country knew until the Rose Bowl. Even after the Big Ten championship game where he burns TJ Watt on the wheel route, it wasn't until that long run in the Rose Bowl that people really realized, wow, this guy he's different. Like, he is a generational back. That's when people started saying it. And I try not to remember the Rose Bowl much because it just depresses me because I know how it ends. But there's no doubt that's a springboard. It was a springboard for Trace, too. I think it was the same deal. Like, we scored, 35 straight points? I mean, that's unheard of. And I kind of think this game's going to be the complete opposite of that. Like, it's going to be more old school football.
I honestly think that exact springboarding thing would have exactly happened in the Cotton Bowl, too, if things were normal. But it just didn't happen the way it did. So
no doubt.
Well, Sean, I admire you for getting through this with the Rona. I appreciate you. Everyone, I'm sure, appreciates you. We will be back potentially Monday night of the game on Monday. I said that like twice now. Monday night, we will potentially be back. Keep updated on Twitter at Hardcore PSUFB. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're on Facebook. But Twitter is the main source. Any final thoughts, Sean?
Penn State is undefeated when Corey and I have both picked Penn State.
Really?
Yep. So keep that in mind. Because you picked them to beat Ohio State. I picked them to beat Michigan. And we both picked them to beat Purdue. And we both picked them to beat Minnesota. So, yeah.
There we go.
So keeping those vibes going.
All right. Well, there you have it. Sean, you good?
I'm good.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you're on YouTube, please make sure you've liked the video and subscribed. Drop your prediction below. If you're on podcast, make sure you have subscribed wherever you're listening. Drop us a 5-star rating. If it's on Spotify, drop us a 5-star review. If you're on Apple, we appreciate you guys. And just share it with a friend. People ask us a lot, like, what can I do to help out? Share it with somebody. Just share it with one Penn State fan. We'd appreciate that. Or your Utah fans, Dave. But thank you guys so much for listening. It's been a fun year here at Hardcore Penn State Football. And the next time you speak with us will be in the new year. So thank you guys so much. For Sean Kane, I'm Corey Listoki. You've been listening to Hardcore Penn State Football. Until next time, bye, everybody.
We'll see you next year. It's going to be a long